very much alike.
Remember all the happy times we had?
Very much alike. All right. I'll tell you the truth.
Good afternoon. Welcome back. Hope you all had really engaging conversations at your tables. I see some heads nodding and shaking, so I see that to be true. We will have our speaker join us in a little bit, but before we start our program, I want to first thank our program sponsor this year. And our program sponsor is Reinhardt. Reinhardt, for our third Thursday programming, we could not do this programming without you, so I just want to give Tempo's heartfelt thanks to you for sponsoring this program. Our program meetings are a huge part of the value that Tempo provides to our membership and our guests, and so thank you for sponsoring us and our friends on today and all of our programming. I am so excited. We're going to hear a conversation about our fascinating revitalization initiatives of some of our times. I know of my time, I'm born and raised in Milwaukee, and so really excited about the work that's being done at the Harbor District. And so I would like to invite our featured speaker, Lilith, up to the stage for her presentation. And then following her presentation, she has her clicker. Yes. Following her presentation, we will welcome Carol Moore of Komatsu to join Lilith in a moderated conversation led by Alicia Dupes. We will also dedicate some time at the end of our Q&A for both in-person attendees and those joining virtually. So thank you very much for those joining virtually. I would love for you to take down a phone number. It should be on the screen to send any questions to our speakers. And that number is 262-424-5995. Again, 262-424-5995. So now, without further ado, please join me in welcoming Lilith Fowler to the stage as Executive Director of Harbor District. Lilith Fowler gets to draw on her passion for great urban environments. She enjoys the many puzzles that come with the two sides of her job, revitalizing a complicated and challenging district and building an organization from scratch. Her career has focused on the intersection of business, community, and environment, from helping a Mexican farmer co-ops obtain organic certification to building Milwaukee's Menominee Valley into a model for sustainable development. Lilith lives in a decommissioned firehouse, that is really cool, on the east side of Milwaukee with her husband and two children. Welcome, Lilith.
So you put the firehouse out there and then all anyone wants to hear about is the firehouse, right? We can talk about that later. Thank you all for coming this afternoon, and it's nice to see people in person. Thanks also to the people who are online but can't see you, but it's really great to just be here with a group of people in person. I'm going to start just by giving you a little bit of historical context about the Harbor District, the place that I've been working for the last 8 years. And then we can talk a little bit about the more modern day, what's going on there right now, and then get into a little bit of what's to come, and then have some conversation with Carol and Alicia. So here we go. For those who aren't quite sure what I'm talking about when I say the Harbor District, it is really just the area immediately south of where we are right now. So the eastern edge edge of Walker's Point and the southern edge of the Third Ward and the northern edge of Bayview. And we looked at that area a decade ago and said, it's a lot of edges, but we could also just flip that on its head and make all those edges into the center of something, create a new district that has water at the heart of it. It's about 1,000 acres. It has 9 miles of waterfront when you add up all those ins and outs. As a place, when you're thinking about this place as an urban planner and thinking about like, how do I sell it to developers? It's got great proximity to downtown and the airport and the freeway. It has huge parcels that were still available and vacant for redevelopment. And it's not desolate, right? Even a decade ago, before some of the new corporations moved in, we had anchor companies that had been there for a long time. Rockwell Automation, the Port of Milwaukee doing business very actively there, and then the UWM School of Freshwater Sciences. So that's kind of a little where we are. Here's the take you way back to before Europeans moved to this area. I just happen to have this great color photo from 1795 of what the place looked like. But it was just all marsh. And in the midst of the marsh was a little bit of a harbor space, and that little harbor that you see on the map drawing is actually why Milwaukee is here as a city at all. This was the best protected harbor on the western shore of Lake Michigan. And so both pre-European communities settled here and used this space and lived here and hunted here. And then Europeans, as soon as they started settling this area, recognized this as a really prime spot and promptly started, rebuilding it pretty radically. So this kind of tracks the evolution physically of the space. We changed the rivers, we changed the harbor mouth, we dredged, we straightened, we filled. And what we ended up with was this very industrial space. So here it is in 1930. In the foreground, if you go to Palomino ever for fried chicken, there's the historic marker across the street about the labor strikes at the iron mill. So what you see in the foreground in that picture is that iron mill, and lots of other heavy industry in the area. 1960, here's the Port of Milwaukee, pretty different kind of scene. And then 2000s, here we are, right? So this was what it was looking like in 2010. You saw the big industries that had been there closing, moving away, moving to countries, in some cases with fewer environmental regulations, right? So the tanning industry and foundries really left Milwaukee, and left behind a place that was really challenged in a number of ways, from the environmental contamination to the kinds of infrastructure, and just a lot of different issues. And yet, as I said at the beginning, right, a pretty great spot in the middle of our city on the waterfront, right? There you are on a great lake. So how do we sort of turn the tide on a place like that and get it moving again? And so this is where I came in about 2012. And the strategy that we put together was with a team of folks, some funders, some city folks, some other professionals, was we thought, okay, we need a structure, we need a vision, and then we just need to get the ball rolling. So Harbor District Inc. is our structure. This is the nonprofit 501c3 that I work for. We bring together all the different government entities and civic stakeholders and corporations like Komatsu. We try to bring some focus and private sector energy to keep this project really moving forward. Our vision is a vibrant waterfront district where diverse people, businesses, and ecologies all thrive together. And so we look at the Inner Harbor as an opportunity to really think about this was Milwaukee's working waterfront, right, for all of the 20th century. If you think about a 21st century working waterfront, what does that look like? How is that different from the working waterfront that we've had? And how can we think about what we're doing now in a way that 100 years from now, instead of leaving people with what we had in 2010, right, with all these liabilities, can we figure out a way to develop this place so that we're building assets instead of liabilities for the future? We had a lot of partners come together to get this effort moving. So Harbor District Inc., the 501c3, and then we also created a business improvement district to make sure that property owners are really at the table and engaged. The city of Milwaukee, all kinds of state agencies, US EPA for the environmental cleanup, and all the different players who kind of needed to be contributing to get this thing moving. We went through a lot of planning. That was our first step, right? And how you get everybody kind of on board with this planning effort, you have all kinds of different touch points with the community, from kayak tours to one-on-one interviews, just to make sure that everyone feels like they're being heard and they've got some input into the process. And we asked them, you've got this waterfront, it could stay an industrial port. Other places have done residential development. Other places have created entertainment districts. What do we want to do here? And what we heard back was waterfront is really special, right? And we should not let it be captive to any one kind of goal. Everybody basically said, we want everything, right? Of course they did. Such a special spot. Why would you not want everything? We said, great, let's have everything. Right? So here's a picture from Toronto. It's maybe not exactly everything, but what you see there is a sugar refinery, and there's a big ship docked at that sugar refinery, right? And then immediately across the slip from that is a venue they call Sugar Beach. They brought in sand. They've got the umbrellas. They've got trees. You hang out on Sugar Beach. And then behind Sugar Beach is the office facility, right? They've got everything. We can have everything. So we put together a plan for this place, and we said, look, it's got to support the regional economy across a bunch of different kinds of metrics, right? We want some light industrial uses that create good jobs for communities. We want some commercial office space that will really leverage the value of this real estate. And we need a port here because we make big things in Milwaukee. Some of the things that go out of the port of Milwaukee are too big to ship by any other means, which blew my mind when I first found it. You can't put it on a train, you can't put it on a truck, it is too big. So if you want to keep that industry, you have to keep the port. We also think, though, that you can't just say, oh, we're going to have industry, and so our environment, we can't care about our environment, right? That's not a 21st century way of thinking about this problem. We know that we can do both of these things. And we just have to be thoughtful and intentional about how we incorporate those goals into what we do. I think Carol's presentation is going to touch on some of that because they have some pretty exciting things that they're doing at Komatsu. So we're working on, advising new property owners about how they can manage their stormwater, how they can incorporate habitat into the work that they do. And then lastly, I think, if you had visited pretty much anywhere in the Harbor District in 2010 or any time before 2017, frankly, you would have said, I'm not sure I belong here. I may be trespassing. There's not actually anywhere for me to go. And when you think back to a map of the city, you've got the lakefront, Lake Park and South Shore Park and all these beautiful lakefront areas that border the neighborhoods of the East Side and Bayview. And then you look at the near south side of Milwaukee, right? This is their waterfront we're talking about. They can't get there. They can't swim there. They can't fish there. They can't in that 9 miles of waterfront, there were 2 actual places that you could get to the water as a member of the public. So we don't need to do that. We know how to build waterfront access in Milwaukee, right? We know how to build a riverwalk. And just because you have a business next to it doesn't mean you can't have a riverwalk, as we see at Komatsu as well. So that was kind of that vision, right? We've got the structure, and then we build this shared vision, which is basically yeah, we're going to do everything. And then we need to get the ball rolling. And the ways that we did that were really, you might call it tactical urbanism. So it was a lot about how can we do cheaply things that get a lot of attention, right? Events and murals and fun stuff that really signal to the general public that the momentum, the place is changing here. We want you to come in. You're welcome here. This is a place for Milwaukeeans. So a lot of different kinds of events that brought all kinds of people down to the waterfront. Harborfest is kind of our signature street fair. We get about 3,000 people a year down there for that, and it is a free, very family-friendly event focused on water and fish and boats. We do free boat tours. It's a great introduction for families to that space. Events is one piece. Murals, as I said, is another great way to kind of change the look of an industrial district and make it look a little more friendly, right? So this guy is on South Water Street, actually right across from your office, right, Jennifer? Yeah. And so how's it going? I think we've, I would say, done a pretty great job. I'm just gonna jump ahead one to say the day that I got the call from John McGivern's team saying they were going to do one segment in their new show focused on Milwaukee and they were going to do it in the Harbor District, I was like, great, my work here is done, right? Like in terms of just placemaking and creating a brand for your place, like, okay, when that's it, people know us, it's out there. We've gotten a lot of media attention, which has been so helpful to tell the story with the public, right? We get people down for all kinds of events, and then lots of new investment into this district. So Main Streets, I don't want to steal Carol's thunder by talking too much about the Komatsu project, but here, the picture you have here is the Michaels development at the corner of First and Beecher. So that's I mean, at the time that they were proposing it, it was a $100 million campus. I think it, as these numbers do, that investment total has probably climbed. But for the district as a whole, that yellow boundary that I showed you on the first slide, the assessed value of all the property within that district from 2016 to today has more than doubled. So, the city is already seeing sort of the return on this effort. Coming up, we're going to be still working on more and better access. We're going to be thinking about environmental improvements, programming, real estate developments, new business support, cruises. I can talk about cruises a little bit. That's a project of the Port of Milwaukee, but they have been very successful at making Milwaukee a base for cruise ships coming in. And so we look at that and we're like, great, how do we make this industrial area then really the kind of front door that we want for people who are stepping off that Viking ship, right? Because you don't necessarily want the first thing they see to be a giant salt pile. So thinking about that, just a little bit about the environmental stuff that's coming in the future. You may have seen this was an announcement today. I don't know if it actually got much media coverage, but President Biden is directing $1 billion towards the Great Lakes Restoration Initiative to help clean up the dirtiest areas on the Great Lakes, of which Milwaukee is one. So we have been sort of working steadily towards cleaning up our rivers, cleaning up those kind of riparian corridors along the rivers, which are all contaminated with the legacies of, past industry, really, right? So there's PCBs, there's all kinds of nastiness sitting at the bottom of the river, which we are going to be getting out over the next 5 years. So that's really exciting. That's a 100-year project that we're finally going to be making progress on. And then the 20-year cleanup actually is at Carol's site. So Milwaukee had its probably several Superfund sites. These are EPA's designation of like, that's a really dirty one. So we had one of those in the Harbor District. And it spent a lot of years kind of doing nothing. And then We Energies and subsequently Komatsu stepped up and really leaned into that cleanup. So that's great to see that moving forward. We've got a small wetland restoration. If you remember my color photo from the beginning, we're not going to have, the 3,000 acres of wetland that we used to have in Milwaukee, but we've got a little 5-acre patch that we're making progress on restoring as more as a model to just give people a sense of like what used to be here, but also as spawning habitat for perch. So some of those kinds of things, and then smaller habitat projects that Harbor District does throughout the area. One of the things that I'm really excited that we were able to get done and that you'll be seeing sort of play out over the next probably decade is Riverwalk. So we have a what's called a zoning overlay, which is a city designation to say we are going to build Riverwalk as properties redevelopment along this whole waterfront. So basically from the third ward, you would be able to go take Riverwalk all the way down to the near south side to Bayview. Which would be pretty amazing. So the regulatory mechanism is in place and a few of the segments are getting built out already. And then it will just kind of be as it was downtown, a little, bits and pieces over time until we have the full system in place. We are working on a trash collector. So Harbor District got a $500,000 grant from EPA to capture trash in the KK River and keep it from floating out to Lake Michigan. That's a really exciting thing that we're working on. And then just because I know this is a roll up your sleeves kind of group, a couple quick thoughts about how you might be able to get involved if you'd like to in the future. We do, various events. We're always looking for volunteers who can help us run those events. In particular, I just want to say we've got doors open this year on the same day as our Harborfest event, which seems like a conflict. So we're trying to redefine that as an opportunity. I believe that Komatsu is going to have their doors open and the new Michaels facility is going to have their doors open. And I thought, okay, we need a water taxi service for the day of doors open that takes people from our spot and Komatsu down to Michael's and over to the port and then back, right? So who's down to plan that with me? Because I need some help. That's right. And then we have various advisory committees. Right now, we are providing support to the city of Milwaukee as they do some planning for bike and pedestrian connections through the Harbor District, for instance. So if you're a biker and you'd like to serve on an advisory committee and help us do that planning, we'd love to hear from you. But there's other things like that. Yep, Reese. There's other things like that we work on over time. And then lastly, I am leaving my job at the end of April. So if you really think that this is the coolest thing that you've ever heard and you want to do it all day long, you can send your resume to search@harbordistrict.org. Otherwise, info@harbordistrict is a great way to reach us with your thoughts or feedback or ideas or whatever else you might like. So at this point, I think you guys will join me up here and we can move to discussion and questions. Oh, and no, you've got 2 slides, right? Carol has some slides for you.
All right. Hello, everybody. I just wanted to kind of give you some background on Komatsu in case you're unfamiliar with us. Our business was started by Alonzo Pauling and Henry Harnischfeger 137 years ago. You may have known us as Harnischfeger, P&H Mining, Joy Global, before we were acquired by Komatsu in 2017. We have about 900 employees currently in Milwaukee, and we design and engineer surface mining equipment. You'll be able to see some examples of that right on the screen. We make the shovel here. The truck is made in Peoria. In the Komatsu world, we're considered to be a mother plant. That means that we have some specialized expertise in things like heavy welding and intricate gearing. And so as Komatsu looked at the National Avenue facility and how that could help the rest of their business, they were willing to invest money to make that better. But as they looked at National Avenue, which some parts of it are over 100 years old, they thought it's still going to be an old property and it's not purpose-built. And so they decided to invest $285 million in a state-of-the-art, purpose-built factory and office now in the Harbor District. Our new South Harbor campus is just about 5 miles from the National Avenue facility. It's built on 50 acres of land at the eastern end of Greenfield Avenue. The office building and the parking structure are completed already, and we've moved in about 500 employees already. We have a manufacturing building that's still under construction, but we expect that to be done early to mid-summer. Our goal was, for this project, was to transform our business by creating a remarkable workplace for the future. And that future prioritized technology, collaboration, and sustainability. So I want to give you a look at some of the sustainability practices that or processes we've put in place. Right from the start, we set some very aggressive goals in energy and water usage reduction. The office building has already received LEED Gold certification, and that's the highest rating for a building in the state of Wisconsin. Some of the features that we've built into the property, we've got a solar array that's going on top of the manufacturing building that's a little bit over the size of a football field, and it is ready for expansion as well. On top of our parking structure, we've installed wind spires that right now power all the lighting that's in the parking structure, but that's expandable as well. Our HVAC system is kind of unique. During the summer, it makes ice at night and then uses that cold water to cool our building during the day. We have in the office section, we've got rainwater collection, and that's cleaned and then used in our restrooms. In the factory, it'll be a closed loop water system that's going to allow us to save the volume of an Olympic-sized swimming pool every week compared to what we were using at National Avenue. So some pretty exciting technology that's going on. On the property itself, we have bioswales and basins that collect rainwater and wastewater, filter that through natural vegetation. We have no direct connection into the stormwater drainage system. So it's all contained within the property. And then in our parking structure, we've already installed electric vehicle charging units, and we've got building automation systems that manage our lighting. So in all, we're looking to reduce our energy consumption by 75% and water consumption by 80%. And we're well on our way to having that in place. So I'm going to stop here, and you can hear more about Komatsu and the Harbor District through our moderator.
Are these on? They're on. So we've already gotten a few questions texted in from our virtual audience, whoever you are out there, but anyone here can obviously text them to us as well. My first question, it's a little off script, Lilith, I'm sorry, is hearing about all of the environmental and sustainability kind of efforts that you put into the building proper and everything that you're trying to do from a district perspective. When you're recruiting companies, is that a requirement for them to be part of the district in terms of having, LEED Gold certification or other sorts of commitment to sustainability?
Hello. All right. So Harbor District has no regulatory authority over anything that happens. We have the ability to share a vision and hope that people come along. Now, that said, all of these properties are very challenging places to develop. The soils are, in addition to the contamination that we added to the top, there's the fact that it's all marsh going down about 100 feet, right? Carol's nodding, they've been dealing with that. So it's just an expensive place to develop, which means that almost anyone who comes in is looking to the city of Milwaukee to provide financial support for their project, which means that we can say, okay, if you want that financial support, we do want to see you addressing these things that we lay out in our planning for the area. So we advocate for that, and the city has been very supportive of that as well. I think we all sort of recognize, like, we do want to not end up with liabilities, right? And the way that you do that is to do good development. So.
So hearing how challenging it is to develop in the Harbor District, what other locations did Komatsu look at, and what was the final kind of compelling point for you to make this investment, but for both the city holistically and of course, first and foremost, your employees?
Okay, I think, yeah, I'm on, good. We partnered with the governor, the state, and the region through M7 and the city of Milwaukee to look at a variety of sites. They really took the time to get to know our organization, what we were looking for, and so we did look at a number of sites, but we really wanted to stay in the city of Milwaukee. When we looked at the Harbor District, it did offer some advantages. First of all, it was an opportunity to turn a brownfield site into a site that could provide family-sustaining jobs, really vitalize the community. It also had those important connections to transportation. We do ship out of the Port of Milwaukee. You saw the size of our equipment. So not everything can go by rail, although we do use rail service as well, plus the interstate system too. So that was important.
That's great. So when you're fully up and operational, how many employees? You said you have 500 that have moved in already. What's kind of the final head count? And then if you can talk a little bit about how the reaction of the employees has been and some of the change management involved with it.
Sure. Yeah, we have 900 currently in Milwaukee. We do have one other site that's not being consolidated. That's a small site in Oak Creek. That's our distribution center. But we are combining 2 additional sites. We had our corporate group that was located in the Honey Creek Office Park, and then the majority of the surface mining equipment employees at National Avenue. So 900 will be on site once we complete the manufacturing building. And then we're looking to grow to about 1,000. We have some incentives to grow that even further to about 1,300. So we'll be looking at ways to take advantage of those incentives. When we first announced the building, this new site in 2018, we knew that we were going to change a lot of things from what we had been doing at our current site. As I said, it's an older property, we've made do, and now we had the opportunity to build brand new state-of-the-art facility. So right from the start, we involved our employees. We did focus groups, we did surveys, leader interviews to try to assess their priorities for the site, especially how we would operate there. So they provided us with all kinds of opinions, but the one thing they told us they didn't like was an open office concept. But on the other hand, they told us they really wanted access to natural light. At National Avenue, it's a maze of old buildings. All of the windows were in offices. So most employees didn't have a window to access. The buildings are a maze of stairways and other connections. So they were really looking forward to the natural light. They also wanted cafeteria, parking, covered parking, more conference room spaces or meeting spaces, and a fitness center too. So we ended up doing an open concept anyway, but we looked at why they were saying they didn't want that. And we were able to balance the needs that they had for privacy and concentration with also the need for collaboration. So we have so many, real variety of spaces, and we're actually encouraging employees not to just sit at their desks. We have a building, the entire building, and soon 2 buildings, that could serve their needs regardless of whether it's concentration or collaboration and things like that. We also formed teams of what we called our move champions or ambassadors, so that we could have kind of an extension of our core team that would continue to bring messages to the broader population, get them and keep them engaged in the project, because it was over 3 years. So we wanted to keep that excitement going. So this team, we were giving them updates on all of construction, we gave them behind the scenes tours, and helped them tell the story to their other teams. They also helped prepare their teams for the move too. Having been in this facility at National Avenue, especially for so many years, you can imagine that we had acres of filing cabinets. We had people stashing things in, closets and parts of the buildings that weren't being used. And so we went through a very painful purging process to try to get rid of the paper we no longer needed, and we engaged a high-speed scanning service to then digitize records, because we really have almost no filing cabinets at South Harbor. So that was a big change, but we were able to manage the change through a lot of process. We also got employees involved. We had kind of this mighty core team of people working on South Harbor, but we extended that through a number of subcommittees. So we had a team of employees that looked at, how is our mailroom going to operate? How should it be outfitted? And can we implement more of a central office supply process? We had another team looking at cafeteria vendors and coffee bar vendors, and another team that looked at building security issues and helped in the search for a new security firm. And there's another one that's on campus fitness, so they're making recommendations on the equipment that's going to go in the fitness center that'll be part of the manufacturing building. And then broader, more of a campus fitness kind of look at walking paths and all kinds of things like that. And then finally, we've got a team that's working on sustainable practices. So looking at how do we actually operate within this new environment. So it's been really enjoyable to bring so many people into the process, not be having it done in secret. And as a result, the employees, when they finally moved in, have been like so excited. They just looking out the windows for one thing, and I mean, that was exciting, but also seeing the harbor. I mean, the harbor is like, every day is something different. We have huge ships that come into the inner harbor, and everybody stops and watches the ships come in. Some of them have brought binoculars to have by the windows so that they could watch all the activity. They really are looking forward to the Riverwalk, especially. The campus fitness team is helping to kind of see how we can take advantage of that. And you wouldn't believe how many people asked about kayaking. When they saw the kayak launch at the Harbor Plaza, they immediately wondered, can we have kayak storage? Can we bring our own kayaks? Will we have kayaks? And so we're actually looking at putting in a storage facility for kayaks too. So we're really trying to take advantage of the neighborhood and the area.
That's great. How about so far this winter? I know you just started moving people in. Are they engaging with the outdoors and the environment, or are they just using their binoculars and looking out?
Yeah, we started moving people in November, so we, right at the start of the cold. So I don't think people are really taking advantage of the area. Plus, our manufacturing building is still a construction zone, so we've got restrictions on the property as well as far as access. So we're looking forward to the nicer weather, people being able to get out, and the construction being completed too.
So Komatsu is a success story. The River One building that Michael's built is a success story. What other sorts of interest have you had? I mean, I know you probably can't talk about by name, but in terms of development in the district, what are you seeing kind of the greatest level of interest being? More industrial, more corporate, et cetera?
We see a mix. So there's at the very northern end of the district is the Mandel Harbor Yards project, which would be a blend of office, some residential, I think maybe a hotel in there. And then as you move south, there's another mixed project proposed for a spot on South First Street, just south of Greenfield, which would actually be 2 towers on a little, you look at the footprint, you're like, there's no way, but they're proposing two, like 20-story towers of like some mix of affordable housing, market rate housing, perhaps a like long-term hotel kind of use. And then south, at the southern end of the district on Beecher Street, Bear Development has a proposal that was seeking low-income tax credits, which I think they did not get. I'm not totally up to speed on that one. But again, housing, and again, a mix of affordable market rate. So we, as an organization, we're really excited to see those affordable housing proposals come in. We all know what an issue that is for the city. And we really want to make sure that as this new part of the city develops, I think, when I listed all those like interviews and stakeholder groups and blah, 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 and everybody, the most consistent thing that we heard from people was, don't let this all be luxury condos. Like that was the number one thing we heard. So we're really, not wanting it all to be luxury condos.
Right. So talking about residential and workforce kind of recruitment, have you targeted the neighborhood for recruiting for your facilities yet? Or do you see that coming in the future?
Not necessarily targeting. We would love to have our employees start to migrate from the suburbs into the city, into the surrounding neighborhoods. We have openings in almost every, discipline. So we're constantly recruiting and definitely would love to recruit from the area as well.
All right, we've got a couple of text-in questions. Did Komatsu confer with Northwestern Mutual regarding its new buildings?
As part of our process, we did a number of benchmarking tours, and Northwestern Mutual was one of those. We also went to, I think, Baird, to Kohl's, to an engineering firm outside in this. I didn't attend that one, but there were a number of businesses that we looked at that had either gone through some recent renovations or had built new facilities too, because we wanted to learn from them.
This one's also for you. How did you get buy-in from non-stakeholders to create organizational change? What barriers did you have, and what tools did your leadership use to create a shared culture at Komatsu with this major transition?
We, like I described, we did a lot of employee involvement in this and a lot of communication. Part of the getting used to what the new office might look like, we did mock-up furniture. And so we had people actually come and sit in the workstations that we were proposing, and we had some kind of options that they could vote on. So it was all along the way, we tried to get their input, satisfy what we could, or explain what we couldn't, in order to keep the project top of mind, as well as send the signal that we were listening to what they wanted. We also, before the actual move-in, we created what I called our orientation guide. It was kind of a giant PowerPoint, but it's ongoing and it's a living document. And we did calls with groups of employees kind of the week before they were going to move in, giving them kind of a tour through floor plans. How do you actually get to the property? What are the routes, bus routes, things like that? What do the amenities look like? And we also spent time on what is our culture going to be when we move here? Because we had the opportunity now to kind of reset and create a different culture. especially with an open environment too, there's going to be kind of new rules, but also new freedoms too. And so we wanted people to understand, how they could best take advantage of the new property and the new amenities that we had.
Terrific. A question I think probably mostly for you. It just says, talk to me about bike trails. So what is the vision for bike trails? And I know that that's an amenity that you are pushing with your employees.
Yeah, we'd like people to get from downtown in the Third Ward to Bayview. Personally, as a biker, like, I don't want to be out there on First Street. I want to be separated from what we were talking at lunch is increasingly crazy traffic, right? So the city of Milwaukee has a grant to do some improvements in that corridor that goes through the Harbor District, working towards really having a system of separated trails, which will be great for all levels of bike users. Currently, there are bits and pieces of off-street trail, including a long section that runs right along Komatsu. And if you've used any of that trail, you know that getting across a river is always a problem, and especially at the southern, sort of northern edge of Bayview, southern end of the Harbor District, those are some dicey spots. So we are really thinking about how to make this a safer experience. That's kind of an important piece of what we have going on. But yes, and if you'd like to be involved, info@harbordistrict.org.
What's happening at the National Avenue site? That question has come in a couple of times.
Well, there's still production going on there, and we actually anticipate that to be going on for a while. We are really busy right now with, supply chain issues and everything, that our customers want product as well. So we're being very purposeful in how we transfer our manufacturing from National Avenue then to the new site, so that we're able to keep up with production demand. We are working with some developers as well as some consultants on what the future of National Avenue will look like, and that process is undergoing. I can't actually, I don't have any details on, or I'm not able to say at this point what it is.
Okay, so I think we're close on time. I'm going to ask one question. It's going to be phrased a little bit differently, but it revolves around excitement for both of you. So what are you excited most about at the district? What project or development might be coming up next? And for you, what do you think your employees are most excited about the move to the district?
In general, I think Milwaukee is just getting started on rediscovering this part of the city. And so what Carol said about looking out the window at the cool ships, it's just really such a fascinating and amazing part of the city that nobody got to experience except for, a handful of port employees, right? So not that they're not important, but there's all the rest of us. And so I am excited for Milwaukee to really get real opportunities to spend time in this place, whether that's as employees, or going kayaking, or going out to eat at new restaurants that are in the works. I just think it's going to be a fun part of the city for everybody.
I'd say from our employees' perspective, just being close to the water, I think has been pretty exciting for them. I think people in southeastern Wisconsin seem to just have this affinity to be close to water, whether it's lakes or rivers. So being right on the inner harbor, I think people find some serenity with that. They find the fascination. I mean, the water's different every day. The activity is different every day. And it's just an exciting place to be. They're also looking forward to the Riverwalk too, because I think they see the possibilities of the walking trails and the bike trails. So hoping that gets built out, all along the way.
And I think that the ability to see what the Riverwalk can be, since we've seen it in phases in other parts of the city, it makes it much more excitable and and tangible in terms of what it is. Another question that came in was about the port itself. Has a developer been selected yet to look at what's going to happen next at the port proper?
So the port put out a request for proposals related to the cruise ship terminal, which is kind of a small, like a 5-acre spot, and they haven't solidified any plans there yet. The port as a whole kind of falls into this interesting category of property in the state. It's built on lake bed. So it's subject to our public trust doctrine through the Constitution, which means that it has to be used for maritime purposes. It can't ever be developed privately, which is great, frankly. We have that spot preserved. Yeah, yeah. Can I just say one other, Carol? And so in addition to the boats that come and go in the harbor, there are birds that will be migrating through in the spring as they head back north. So there's like a few days in the spring when, if you have an office down there, you see Caspian terns in the inner harbor, and they fly straight up into the air hundreds of feet, and then they just dive straight down, and you can just sit in your office and watch these birds fishing like all day long. So yeah, you'll know, you'll see it.
All right, closing questions for both of you. There lots of people would like to know what you are doing next. So we have two people who are retiring. We have Lilith and Carol, you're at the end of July. So the question to both of you is, what's next now that you've left your legacy in the Harbor District as both a corporate executive and the visionary behind the district itself?
I have 2 teenagers at home, so my short-term plan is to really get on their nerves as much as I possibly can before they're out of the house. And then longer term, I'm kind of just gonna wait and see.
Well, I started a new hobby. I took up art. So I've been taking classes and trying to use a different part of my brain. I also have a grandchild, so she's 1.5 years, so looking forward to spending more time with her. Also some travel. My family on my mother's side is originally from Slovakia. So my sister and I are planning a trip this fall to go see them, as well as visit Vienna and a couple other places too.
Well, that's great. That wraps us up for today. I think, Jen, you have a couple of closing remarks, but huge thanks to Lilith and Carol for sharing everything about the district.
Thank you. Yes, thank you, ladies, so much. Lilith, Carol, and Alicia. I can confidently say I am a Harbor District brand ambassador. So I hope all of you are as well. This was incredibly informative. And just a quick little side note, I joined Tempo in 2014. My first ever Tempo event was a tour of the Harbor District. It wasn't via kayak, which would have been kind of cool, but the freshwater sciences, and that was my first Tempo discovery event. So it all brings us full circle. So,
could do a kayak tour.
Hey, I would love it. We've talked about it. Actually, our Tempo discovery, our engagement committee has talked about that. So I know where to find you, Lilith. Yeah, so thank you. Thank you so much. Alicia, thank you for moderating today's discussion. It was really great. So thank you all for joining us in person, and for those of you who joined us virtually, thank you as well. We just have a couple of final announcements as we close, a couple of upcoming events this month and next. First, our Women's Affinity Alliance event is next week, Wednesday, over Zoom. They will be hosting a virtual roundtable discussions on best practices for your ERGs session. So really an informative and great session for that. We also have, in March, we'll host a professional development session on building compassionate cultures of resilience and accountability, led by Sue Mackenzie-Dix. This event will be offered both in person and virtual. And lastly, and not least, we are quickly approaching our 32nd annual Mentor Awards on March 10th at the Pfister Hotel. We will be in person. Kelsey did mention to our board this morning that registration will close on Friday. So we are at capacity. We are sold out, which is incredible for this event. So if you have not yet registered, we can probably sneak you in. But we will be featuring and recognizing our very own Alicia Dupies, as well as Jackie Hurd Barber. And we will also be having a honorary Champion of Women award to our legacy member, Mary Dowell, as we celebrate her life. We are nearing the sold-out event, and so if you haven't registered, please do so. Thank you again for joining us. Thank you again to Lilith and Carol and Alicia. Thank you all for attending, and for those who joined us virtually. We will see you in, if not at the Mentor Awards, at our April meeting, our annual meeting back here in April, mid-April. So thank you. Have a wonderful afternoon.